but I think we have everybody here. So again, I'm Kieran Hayes, pre-sales, focusing on Semantic for CMS distribution, and Sinead obviously is in-house here for the ITO team. Just before I begin, I suppose I just wanted to quickly reiterate all the information that you've been given. That can, you know, that's just a phone call away essentially. I mean, if you guys ever need anything, I just in terms of simplifying it, it's just a phone call away either from ourselves here at CMS, and there's emails for ito@semantic.com. Today is really about making it as easy for the partners here to just understand that Semantic are literally here for the smaller customer as much as they are here for the larger customer. So again, the products that we'll go through today, they're more focused on the smaller customer. So enabling your end users to be able to roll out these products themselves, or indeed yourself to roll it out on their behalf. So without further ado, I'll just jump into it. So briefly, the agenda will give an introduction to what we do in our own separate roles, Sinead and I. I'll give a quick solution overview in terms of Semantic as a whole, so not just in the smaller business space, but also their kind of wider view of security and cybersecurity in general. And we'll focus then on those smaller size customer solutions, so SMB solutions, such as SEP Cloud and email security service. So Sinead, you're actually up first. Just that slide.
So I think Melissa had this slide or something very similar up earlier on. So myself, I'm from part of the Inside Technology office, so part of Melissa and Gillian's team that you've met today. And the idea there is you've got obviously a very expansive team that cover of the Semantic products there, to be able to support you in anything from a pre-sales technical assistance perspective. So that's from training, so even for yourselves, partner training, assistance with obviously customer demonstrations, presentations. So if you've got questions coming in, you're not sure, your guys aren't sure, you can always come to us for kind of that additional help. You've got then obviously from a know-how perspective, we're covering, as I said, multiple products. So you're gonna, if you get through, so the idea is ito@semantic.com. Melissa emphasized it, so that should be a really big resource for you guys, and the chat as well. So there's a chat where you can reach out and ask just off the cuff questions, or if you need those kind of deeper bit of help with POCs and RFIs and things like that. That's where you reach out to ITO, and so one of the team will pick it up based on what your query is or what question you have. We cover, as I mentioned, kind of requests for proposals. Health checks is another big thing, and so I don't know if some of you might have heard of it. We've been talking about it a little bit more recently. So if you've got existing customers on our Semantic Web Gateway, our email, our Endpoint Protection, the on-premise SEP 14, and also our CASB solution, so for shadow audit. So the idea is we do health checks on those 4 solutions. And what that means is if a customer, say, already has the solution, where you can engage with them and say, hey, why don't you look into a health check, and we'll get Symantec involved. We can have a look and see, make sure that you're actually using the product to the best of your ability, that you're not missing out on any of the key features, and that you're getting everything you need from it. And the idea is to give a little bit back before it comes around to renewal, and you're just kind of saying, hey, oh, by the way, do you need any help? So we want to make sure we're giving back to the customers, regardless of whether they're coming to renewal or they're just brand new customers. We also give those health checks maybe a couple of weeks, couple of months after they've purchased, maybe to check in again and say, hey, and make sure again that they've set up everything correctly. And then obviously partner enablement is really big with our team as well. So we want to make sure that you guys are on the right path. So that's what I suppose Kieran and I are here today talking about SEP Cloud and email. So it will be something similar to this that we can help out with. And obviously Kieran does so much. So the next slide will be obviously Kieran's one of our Semantic Nights. So you'll also see has the little badge and everything signifying. And the idea is we know that Kieran does so much from that side helping you guys out. So we want to make sure that you can spread out that workload as well.
Yeah. So just to share the love, actually, those health checks, which are done primarily by Semantic, I suppose Ireland, both small customers, medium-sized customers, big-sized customers, there's such a large SEP customer base in Ireland, and as Sinead said, instead of us as a disti and you guys as partners going out to them with just a renewal, there is a large value-add element to saying, how is SEP going for you? Do you want us to do a health check? Do you want us to ensure that SEP is running, Semantic Endpoint Protection is running to its optimum? So it's not just the renewal. You need to renew. There's a kind of a proactive assistance there with the health check. So from a CMS perspective, we'll be looking to roll out, just for your help, we'll be looking to roll out notification as part of the maybe renewal when it's coming up well in advance, just to say, listen guys, there is the health check option available. So it's not that you have to remember it from today. We will be kind of proactively trying to remind you that it is available if it's something you want to offer them. But it's kind of sounds like a no-brainer in one sense that a customer would want to ensure, maybe for the larger installations particularly, but also possibly for the smaller installations. So the guys are on hand, to work with you.
Sorry, could I just interrupt myself? Just to add on that, the significance of the health checks, with the experience that we've done so far, especially with SEP, because that is primarily a partner base, most customers probably don't set it up in the right way, and when we actually check their security posture, they would be very surprised at where they are. So that discussion is more so ensuring that for the current landscape, that they're set up in the right way. And then a fantastic opportunity, if you look at SEP, how it's developed in the last year, and if you look at all the additional add-ons with AD Protect, with EDR, it's a great opportunity to look at how you can actually sell an add-on and make sure that you retain that customer. Would they find it valuable? You've done the health check with them initially, you've invested that time, and then they're generally willing to listen to you, opening up that discussion to add on more solutions. And feedback that we've got from customers is absolutely fantastic, and they typically would buy something additional on top of it.
Yeah.
Can I share a question? So how long does it take to get the health check set up, and how long does it take for it actually to be completed?
So depending on the product, so with SEC we actually need some data from them, so as long as they're willing to share the data, and then we can run the report and then actually just create the health check within a couple of hours. So it's a relatively quick turnaround. With email, we can look at the details in the console, but we actually have back-end access that we can do a much deeper dive review, and we kind of bench them against the industries that they're in and share with them the types of spam they're getting, how they're benched against their particular industry. So yeah, you give them a lot more valuable information that you're kind of surprising them, because as we know, the landscape evolves daily.
Thanks, Jill. So from pre-sales in CMS point of view, I suppose, look, we're not just a disti, we're very much a value-add disti, and our dedication to Symantec has been, what does it bring? It's over 12 years now. We have a very mature relationship with Symantec, and I suppose as a dedication, not just to having a dedicated account manager, sales team, renewals, etc. in our Centre of Excellence in Mayo, we also became part of the Semantic Nights program. So I acquired Semantic Nights. I achieved Semantic Nights last year. Essentially, what that is, it's Symantec recognizing somebody as being, within their partner community, as having in-depth technical knowledge, the ability to describe the solutions, how the solutions fit together, how they will be of value to you and your customers. In that sense, you would come to me, I could very easily tell you if a particular solution is a fit. So it's just, it's a quick fire kind of a questions that you have. Again, it's just me being your go-to resource from a CMS perspective. So if you come to us looking for pricing, we very much have in-house technical knowledge along with the guys in ITO. So if there is something I don't know, and there's a lot I don't know, but there is a lot I do know, but the guys in Symantec have my back. Yeah, so I would be, part of my training for Semantic Nights would be to have achieved certification in certain products. And there's an ongoing process whereby I would attend technical training on different products, including the two we're going to go through today, just to keep up to date in it, because as Jill said, things are always changing. So if the threat landscape is changing, the products are always changing. But it's our job just to let you know that yes, it does something that you want it to do, or it doesn't do that yet, for example. So it's just those questions that you can feel free to come to me with, and I'll give you a card or I'll drop you an email at the end. So I suppose just to point out as well, during the slides, they get somewhat technical. So if you have any questions on the products, or maybe if you have questions about something that your customers may be looking for at the moment, or something that you've been wondering about, feel free to just ask.
And just to touch off as well, kind of what Kieran just mentioned there, I don't know if you guys are familiar with discovery calls or kind of scoping calls. So that's a big thing as well. Like Kieran mentioned, you coming to him or our team about, wanting to maybe a demo or presentation for a specific product. Well, we find it's really useful to get us engaged at that really early stage, to have that initial be on that initial scoping call, to make sure and narrow down that this is the exact product for their requirements. Like, you'll be familiar that Symantec have a vast variety of products, and so we're bound to kind of cover their needs in some way or another, and so we want to make sure from the very beginning we find that getting us involved at that first stage, it kind of builds a rapport with the customer as well, and it means then that when it goes on to an actual demonstration, presentation, and we're following maybe POC and talking about the products with the customers, that we've already kind of engaged at that top level, and we've got that kind of conversation going. So definitely think about us when you're thinking of which products to pitch and talk about it as well. We'd be happy to help there as well.
So I've mentioned at the start, obviously today is around SEP Cloud, and it's around the email security service, which is an actual suite of products, and we'll speak about them. But I'm not sure, was it Garrett or Alua that mentioned it earlier, possibly Melissa actually, just that Semantic, there's a thought out there that Semantic it's AV. We hear it so much that Semantic, yes, they're antivirus, right? So Semantic do so much more than antivirus, and I suppose just to very quickly, some acquisitions in the past couple of years, past 3 years, really opened up the security stack from just antivirus, endpoint protection. There's email, market-leading web security, cloud security, products that have both an on-premise presence and a hosted presence, or indeed a hybrid, if that's what you prefer. Looking to secure everything from servers to laptops, mobile devices. Again, as Julian said, it's not, it's the threat landscape is changing on a daily basis, but so is how we use the technology now. So Semantic is adapting, and obviously Semantic has been around for quite a long time, but they've really rejuvenated themselves, and through, I suppose, the highs and lows of acquisitions, they've come out with this new cyber defense platform, which includes 4 main pillars, I suppose: endpoint, proxy or web security, email, and cloud applications. And to wrap around those 4 main pillars, you have a lot of data protection. You have data loss prevention, you have encryption, you have 2-factor authentication. And a lot of these products will work together, which is also, I suppose, something that has changed with Semantic. Semantic, again, would have historically have been very much a point solution, siloed solutions. That again has changed in the last 2 years, where a lot of products are now integrating together. So you have web proxy working with endpoint protection. They're communicating. It's not just you have endpoint, you have proxy, you have to manage them separately. They're very much looking at unifying the information that's coming from both those products, and indeed technically how they work together. There's a lot of integration there. So there's both a cost saving and there's a resource overhead from a technical perspective as well. There's a lot of savings there. So I suppose the point of this slide is just that the portfolio has broadened now to the point where Semantic don't do everything. They don't cover absolutely everything, but they cover such a wide range, and this, I suppose, the range they do actually cover will cover the main key elements. We'll cover endpoint shortly. We'll cover email, which is the number 1 threat vector where most people are attacked. Web security and cloud applications for people moving some of their SaaS applications to the cloud, but also in securing the actual platforms in the cloud that those applications are sitting on. So it's just to give you guys that visibility that the conversation is there. If you're looking primarily at endpoint and email, then that is absolutely something Semantic excel at. But if you do have the opportunity for customers coming to you asking about, do you have a product for information leakage or compliance or analyzing information or two-factor authentication, which is becoming very popular, I suppose have that conversation with me, and I can very quickly point you in the right direction in terms of the relevant solutions. I don't know if you had any.
No, just I suppose Kieran kind of mentioned it a lot there, but I mean we're going to be talking about SEP Cloud and email today, and the fact that they're two of the four kind of main pillars that we kind of talk about in terms of starting off from. So endpoint protection is going to be your baseline, right? That everybody's going to need it, want it, have it, all right? Then we're kind of saying, right, what's after that? Well, especially for your types of customers, email security, right? Because you've got your endpoint, which is the baseline, but you want to maybe add that additional layer because the most kind of threats and things like that are coming through email. You've got your attachments, your demos, things like that that are going to be hitting your endpoint. And then you're just relying on your endpoint to secure you from everything there. So adding that extra layer for email, and then you're going again up to the web and having your web security or proxy in the cloud or on premise, like Kieran said. We kind of cover all aspects there depending on your customer needs. And then you've got then that broader range, which a lot of our customers are going down that route because we're becoming more and more, I suppose, the access to cloud apps. You guys on your mobile phones today probably accessed, I don't know how many, different in-house apps. And the idea behind the CASB or the Cloud Access Security Broker solution is to be able to know what apps are being used by your end users, where they're using them, how they're accessing things, your data, things like that within the cloud. So it all comes together. I think that kind of big picture of security. I often talk about the circle of security, which you'll kind of see a little bit later through the rest of the slides. But
so again, I wanted to highlight the Cyber Defense Manager, which is a relatively new area for Semantic, but it's just, I'll just bring up the rest of these. It's just again to quash that kind of idea that Semantic, they're no longer a disparate solution, a siloed solution, which again would have been the case some years back. A lot has changed in the last couple of years. So they've introduced what they call the Cyber Defense Manager, which is, they don't have all the products on there yet, but they are looking to essentially create a single pane of glass, whereby you will have a web GUI and you will have your different products tabbed along the top of that web GUI, and you will be able to just access your products on the fly. You won't have to be logging into separate consoles per se. So it's that single pane of glass view. What that will do is then, I spoke about the integration piece earlier, there would be a lot of auto management and a lot of policies will be task driven. So in terms of auto management, if in the back end there will be a lot of machine learning going on, which again Semantic excel in, and they will look at policies that you have. They will pretty much rate those policies to make sure that they are, you're ensuring that the policies are secure as possible, and they will advise in terms of how you could maybe improve those policies. So at the moment, the Cyber Defense Manager is more focused at the enterprise products, but there will be a Cyber Defense Manager essentially for the products that we're going to focus on today. Again, something else that Semantic has changed or is changing is the openness in terms of taking information from the products and bringing them into maybe a third-party analytics console. So the information isn't again locked down where it used to be. So there's very much a move for Semantic to allow that information to be taken securely from their products and ingested into third-party products such as SIEMs or data lakes or public cloud. So just the impression I wanted you to get today was that Semantic has changed a lot in the past couple of years. It's continuing to change very much for the better in terms of allowing you to have more control over the security you provide to your customers. As I said, this at the moment it's more focused on the enterprise products, because a lot of enterprises obviously would have a lot more products to manage, but there is very much a solution that will be coming very similar for the smaller customer as well, just to make it easier for them to manage. So. And in terms of the machine learning, so we mentioned machine learning there. So I suppose Symantec, they've been around for a long time. They have the largest threat intelligence, civilian threat intelligence in the world. So Symantec, across those different products, they're seeing threats on a daily basis. Viruses, they scan URLs, they look at different emails. So they're seeing all the threats in real time. The products are feeding that information back up into their threat intelligence network, or their global intelligence network. And that information then from all those products are fed back down to the products that you have installed with your customers. That ensures, I suppose, that because Symantec are getting the most information across their consumer products, their enterprise products, their mid-market products, they are seeing a lot of those threats first before any of the competition. And I suppose that's one of the ways that Symantec stand apart from the crowd and the growing crowd of security players. They see a lot of the information first. A key thing for me always with the Global Intelligence Network was that not only do the enterprise products benefit from having a global intelligence network from all the products, the small business products, or the products again that we're talking about today, that also benefits from the global intelligence network. So you're getting enterprise grade threat intelligence for your small customers, and for me that's a key differentiator, always has been for Symantec. And now with their increased breadth of products such as web and cloud security, they're seeing even more faster than the competition, which again is being pushed on. That information is being relayed to endpoints, it's being relayed to email security products, it's being relayed back down to web, and that's giving the product the edge for your customer, where the customer is protected faster than the competing solutions. So with that, we've gotten on to the first product, which is Semantic Endpoint Protection Cloud. So I suppose a quick introduction, why endpoint security is critical. So there's countless endpoint security vendors out there. It's the critical termination point. Everybody needs to have it. We can talk about all the different solutions, but everybody needs to have endpoint protection. It's pretty much the critical solution in terms of security. And again, that's why we have such a wide user base in Ireland of SIP, and other solutions obviously. So I suppose why do we need to have SMB SIP cloud for SMBs? I suppose it's not just the enterprise space. So attacks are increasing. We have percentages there. 61% of attacks target SMBs. It's not just the enterprise that they're after. They can invariably get access to enterprises through smaller customers. The types of devices that customers are using, it's not just large corporates that use mobiles now. We all use mobile devices for email and access to different applications. And I suppose particularly today, we're talking about partners and customers that don't have a security setup, a security team per se. Some people, it could be the managing director, the same person could be an installer, the same person could be the HR person. They do the whole lot, so they don't have the time, and that was one of the key reasons, I suppose, for today's session, that a lot of Irish partners, the vast majority of Irish partners probably, they don't have a lot of time because they're getting stuck into customer issues. They're trying to get solutions deployed and installed. So what we wanted to highlight with these particular solutions is the ease with which the solutions can be deployed, but also the depth of security that they provide, while still being easy to deploy. So just some stats there, which I think came from last year.
And Kieran kind of says, so ease of management, ease of access, that's going to play a huge part when we dive into the, I suppose, the inner workings of how that console is going to look for you guys. But also from a resource perspective, like Kieran mentioned, timing. Also, time is money, right? It's a kind of cliche there, but it's very true. And what we want to emphasize to you today as well is how you can kind of cut out the amount of time that you're going to spend looking after solutions. Some of you guys will be obviously maybe full kind of reseller selling this product to your customers, and you want to be able to emphasize all those key features and how that's going to reduce their timing on how much time they spend on it. But also some of you might be managed service providers or kind of teetering on the edge of that. A lot of times we see customers or partners that might be kind of reselling, kind of hybrid, also kind of managing the service or looking to get into that space. Because it's a great way for you to make more money as well, right? You're already probably doing a lot of it yourselves. So when we kind of go into it later, you heard Shahab earlier on for partner services mentioning about the partner management console. That's going to be a great way, we'll talk about at the very end of these slides, how you can actually look after the service then for your customers as well, if that's a route that you choose to go down later.
Okay, so Symantec, in terms of what Semantic Endpoint Protection Cloud, so it looks across the endpoints, both traditional and the modern endpoints. So from the traditional perspective, you have Windows, Windows servers, Mac, and then you have your Apple and your iOS and your Android. So it's got, I suppose, the X factor over certain solutions. It's got quite a wide breadth of probably the most popular iOS or operating systems that you would have at that level. So you're looking at threat protection for your endpoints plus device management. So in terms of device management, it's a case of simply downloading an app from the official store, which then syncs up with the SEP Cloud console in terms of being able to monitor and ensure that device is fully protected. So always available, always current in terms of the downloads. The downloads are automatically downloaded, so you don't need to worry about scheduling downloads. Very light in terms of the amount of content that needs to be downloaded. Obviously, as definitions and information becomes available, it's put down to the agent that's installed either on the endpoint or the app that's on the phone. And as the name suggests, it is a cloud-based delivery of both the definitions and the administration console. So if this is something that customers are looking for in terms of, they don't want to manage an on-premise server, they want to have a quick deployment where they can log in online, review what the issues are, review what endpoints are being protected. There's different reports and obviously alerting on there as well. We're not going in too deep into the product. It's just to kind of give you a flavour, but obviously if there's any questions that you have, you can catch up with us after in terms of what it can do in depth. Or does anyone have any questions at the moment in terms of what they're looking for in a solution?
Yeah, we want to try and make it a little bit interactive while we're talking, so we're not just talking at you guys a lot, but I suppose, are any of you guys looking after the service for your customers right now, or know a little bit about what your customers are looking for from the service? Endpoint protection. What do you hear the most that they're complaining about the most? Maybe that might be an easier question.
There's no complaints then.
Great.
That's a good thing too.
So ransomware, right? Ransomware is one of the big things customers are like, I'm looking for endpoint protection, does it do ransomware? So that's all they care about. They don't care about any of the other benefits and features that endpoint protection would bring. But why would they? I mean, that's what we're hearing constantly in the news. So again, endpoints with was it WannaCry or was it Petya? So
yeah.
Basically any endpoints that had endpoint protection installed, they were completely secure.
Yeah, and you'll kind of see it as we go through some of the slides. I think one of the slides I touch off is a couple of, from multiple engines, multiple shields. It's all about multi-layered protection, and Symantec is really focused on that from a per product perspective. So within each product, there's layered protection. So you're never depending on one element to be turned on. There's lots of different shields, as I said, lots of different engines that are going to be protecting you in different ways, and that's to ensure that there's different delivery methods, different kind of threat vectors. So we want to make sure we're covering all of those bases within a single product. And then that's where we kind of come about with why we're talking about separate cloud today and email, because even from a product perspective, we want to be layering. There's, we're always going to be playing catch up with the bad guys as such, and we want to make sure our customers have as many kind of tools and things in their.
I suppose it's also very important to mention that not only are you getting a best of breed solution for SMBs that has all the best threat feeds that an enterprise customer would want in an SMB solution. I suppose it's also important to mention the pricing. So there's no point having all this if it's ridiculously expensive. So that again was the point of having this session, that there is very much a pricing and support for the smaller customer. So just ensure you have that in the back of your mind, because as I say, if you have all this great stuff and it's just too expensive for your customer, then there's no point. So again, those discussions can be had offline, but it's just something to keep in mind. You want to go through these ones?
Yeah. So simplifying again your endpoint protection. So the idea is there's no on-premise hardware or software for you to manage with the SEP Cloud. So everything's in the cloud. Kieran touched off it there as well. So from updates and that you can actually manage within the console. We know obviously that there's going to be maybe certain times or different groups of users that maybe you don't want the automatic downloads or updates to occur. So you can address that within the policies that you create within the console. Well, our recommendation is if there's an update available, get it, right? You're not going to have be seeing kind of significant impact on machines. The way in which we design the solutions now is that we want to make sure our customers are fully protected, but they're not obviously kind of weighing up, oh well, I can't do my day-to-day job while these updates are occurring. So that's something, again, kind of old school. That's not something that you're going to see with the new kind of cloud-based technology. So that's where we kind of go from an automated side of things. There's nothing for you to be physically looking after from a hardware side of things, and you're not. The idea is to reduce that kind of touch from your side. That you're going to be able to do a lot from the console. That's in. Karen mentioned as well, reporting, alerts. So you can even break down and specify from an alerts perspective on what types of alerts, what kind of criticality those alerts are going to bring about. So and again, it kind of brings back to spending time within the console and that kind of IT resource side of things. They don't have time to be, what if I get 50 alerts here? How do I know where I prioritize? Like, do I need to look at through all 50 of these? So when you're actually customizing the alerts in the console, you're stating at which level you think this type of alert should be. Should this be a critical? Should this be an error, a significant error message, or should it be on the lower scale? So when you receive it, okay, well, I have time, I'm working on something else right now. That doesn't need to be looked at right this second. You'll also see, we mentioned as well from being from a mobile workforce perspective, you've got your roaming users, your business data, so it's not just one physical location anymore. You've got branch offices, a lot of people roaming users, so people working out of cafes, working from home. So we need to be able to support those types of customers, and then also the endpoints that they're using. So from mobile, the SEP Cloud solution is going to protect the endpoint, so Windows machines, Windows 10 as well, servers, and then obviously your mobile devices, your iOS and your Android. Great. So some of these will probably cross over a little bit because probably getting ahead of ourselves a tad. But we mentioned obviously the multi-layer defense. Big emphasis there. So it's on against known, unknown, zero-day threats. Unknown, that's where it's all about, right? Because what we have is obviously signatures, definitions, they confirm what we know is bad, okay? And then you've got the element of what we know is good, to be 100% good. And then everything that's in that grayscale, that's the unknown. That's where we have to focus a lot of our attention, right? Because things can look like they're all right, but they're not. And that's where they have that grayscale. We have that 1 to 10 as such. And that bit in the middle, you'll see a lot as we go through, even as we touch off the email and that later, that follows through with all of the solutions that we're always looking to see, okay, well, we don't want to let that through. We want to maybe have a look, take that maybe to a sandbox, ensure before that runs on the endpoint, what's actually going on with that particular file. And that's where 0 day, Kieran mentioned it with ransomware, and that when people talk about ransomware. Ransomware is a 0 day threat, right? If it gets through, it's because we didn't have a signature definition for it. We didn't know exactly what that file was. And that's where a lot of our back-end technology, like we're not just looking at, that's why when we talk about antivirus being old, outdated, and when we kind of mention it again a little bit later when we have it on the vast scale of engines and shields and things, it's still inclusive, it's still important, but it's not just antivirus anymore, it's endpoint protection, right? We'll go into a little bit more later. Ease of use, so that's huge, right? Because your customers don't want to use a product that's difficult to manage, that's difficult to be notified about, and the worst thing I think from an IT perspective is, if they're getting inundated with messages and things from the end users, I'm really unhappy, I don't like this. Like a lot of times we see, if people are coming to us from competitors or things like that, it's because the end users have been really upset or annoyed at not being able to do their work. They're hounding the IT departments, and then the IT departments are coming saying, we can't use this product anymore, we need to look at something else. So this is why, again, you'll see like the console is very intuitive. We've made it very user-friendly for the admin, the IT guy, and then also from an end-user perspective, what they see, even from a mobile perspective. We'll kind of think we touch off of that in a couple of slides later, but we want to make every aspect of it that little bit more simplified by still giving you the full protection that you need. So this is, I kind of mentioned this a couple of times there, from multi-layered protection. So obviously we're starting here with your network, firewall, intrusion prevention. So not a lot of products actually even have from an intrusion prevention perspective. So we're looking at that top layer from the get-go. We want to see what's trying to actually come in to your network and how we can prevent. Again, we're talking about defense, prevention. These things all, it comes about in a big circle from a security perspective. Then you've got your memory exploit mitigation. So that's protecting you from what's already in your environment. So you've got legitimate software that's now actually being used against you because of vulnerabilities and things like that have been located within the software. So what we want to be able to do is stop the essentially 0 day piece of malware and that from actually utilizing those vulnerabilities and causing even more havoc within your system. Reputation analysis, that covers a lot of things. So obviously files and websites. So when we're looking at a reputation of a website, so we kind of mentioned some numbers earlier on. We've got 175 million endpoints around the world, feeding into that global intelligence network and also feeding from it, which means that our information, our data, everything is in real time. Nothing kind of gets stale. Some people, there's some providers, they don't own all of their data, so they're taking or they're getting lists and things like that, which become quite stale quite quickly. So because we're utilizing all of our own technology in these areas, it means that we can be up to date and everything's in real time. From a reputation standpoint, we're looking at, so a website comes through, how old is the website, how long has it been live, what kind of interactions, IP addresses that are linked to the website, if it's ever been compromised in the past. All of this information comes together. It's never just one piece of data. And the idea then is that can change. So just because a website has been compromised in the past and maybe it might have a lower reputation, that reputation then can still go back up over time. And the idea is that we're not saying, right, no, we go to that website for whatever. We wanted to have a bit of movement there as well. Advanced machine learning. So Kieran touched off machine learning there earlier on. So that's where it kind of comes down to detection of evolving threats pre-execution. So and it kind of leads into our virtual machine emulation there as well. Not knowing what a file is, that can be quite scary because that's how customers get infected, and that's why we've built up these multiple layers to kind of prevent that. Having all of these elements enabled, and you'll see as well when you go into the console, when you actually go to create a policy, so when you create your security policy in there, it has certain elements already turned on. The moment you start turning things off, it highlights the strength of your policy now that you've made these changes. So it starts off as a strong policy, oh well, I'm turning off X, Y, and Z, now you've got a weak policy. as you go along and turn on different things, it'll increase the strength. So the idea is to advise you. A lot of times customers, especially if you have had bad experiences with another product in the past where, oh well, I know that this affected my accounting software and everything went mad and people didn't get paid that month. People think to the past and they think, okay, I want to make sure I turn off everything here. So when you start off with a new product, you do have to obviously have those things in mind, but also remember it's a new product and ideally a better product that you're bringing in, and it's going to have a bit more know-how and information on those. That's why we have obviously whitelisting, application whitelisting, things like that within the solution. From a virtual machine emulation, so the idea there is to, again, for those unknown files, to be able to actually execute those before they get onto the endpoint and run on the endpoint side of things. We want to, again, bring about that extra layer of protection and reducing, again, the likelihood of a user getting infected by something that was unknown or within that kind of grayscale of detection. And then antivirus. So I mentioned that it's, Kieran kind of touched on it very much so at the beginning, and Harriet earlier on, that back in the day it was just all about antivirus. That's what it was. By bringing in all of these extra elements, that's when it becomes endpoint protection, because you still have to have your signatures and your definitions and to know what's bad, right, 100%. But everything else is what brings in to mitigate those unknowns, those 0 days, and where the other kind of threat vectors are coming from as well. And mobile, so challenges. I don't know, have any of you guys here in the room got endpoint protection or on your mobiles right now? Yeah, good, right? Because what we're seeing here over the last, definitely over the last 2-3 years, I've been seeing a lot of myself anyway, is there's an increase. Thankfully now people are starting to look towards mobile protection, especially if they've got a case of they're actually their company owned devices and they're handing those out to people. They are starting to secure those, so that's where we have a set mobile solution, which is, it has its own management console. I would usually point towards that if, again, you've got hundreds of mobile devices that you've got a specific focus on, and again, it's maybe you've got a security team that are looking after that. That's kind of the product you go down. With your SEP Cloud, what we've done is we've brought in a way for customers who in the past wouldn't have wanted to protect their mobile devices, and not because they're negligent or they're not bothered. It's because they're thinking, right, well, I just got budget right for my endpoint protection here now. I can't even be thinking about mobile at this moment in time, and because it's a whole separate product and a whole separate management element and things like that. So what we've done is we've brought in the SEP Cloud to also facilitate those mobile devices, those tablets. It might even only be a couple of devices in-house, or even some people might be bringing your own device to work, but they're using they're connecting and using the email. They're using their email on the phone, right? Because at a minimum, really, people that's what they're doing, right? They're looking at email at first from a mobile perspective. So what we've done is we've implemented so that within this one console you can look after both your mobile devices and your endpoint all in one. So when you're having those conversations with those customers, you can say, well, this product also covers mobile, and you can just slip that into the conversation. You can also slip those mobile devices into the console, and it reduces, I suppose, definitely from an IT person perspective, I feel anyway, they're a bit more relaxed about having that conversation then, right? Because they're like, well, actually, I could probably spare a little bit more bob, to add those in if it's all already supported within this product that I'm already looking at. And also, the increase in, so you see there, 80% increase in iOS, Android vulnerability. So, and obviously then as well from a malware perspective, these numbers we take from, we have the Symantec threat research report that we produce every year, so you should definitely take a look at that. And it's looking at our customer base, again, the information that our customers, or things our customers are seeing in terms of increases in malware and things like that. But what you'll find as well with every new iteration, with a brand new upgrade of iPhone or a new Android, new Samsung that's coming out, I just saw an ad there the other day for another new Samsung, and it can charge itself. But the idea there is that you get more features, right, with every new phone. So of course it makes sense then that there will be new types of malware that will be available to try and attack these new features and utilize vulnerabilities within these new features, because I think we all know that from a product kind of perspective, there's always a couple of things that are found out a little bit later after everything's gone to production and been released. And then why do we emphasize there on the Wi-Fi networks? The reason being that's, again, a level of protection we can offer you within this solution. So the idea there is you can actually look at, so both from an email setup perspective and also from the Wi-Fi, so the connections that those users are making over the Wi-Fi. Is that a secure Wi-Fi connection, or is it suspicious? And if that is the case, then preventing that end user from connecting to that network. So maybe it's a Starbucks Wi-Fi, they're maybe going through the airport. A lot of people often give out, about the captive portals. When you go through the airport, I have to put my email address in, I have to put something in here, and I have to click this. But they at least kind of verify that this is legitimate and this is the actual offering from the airport. Whereas what can happen now is people they want the free, they want the quick and easy, and they click through, and maybe they're connected now to somebody else that's actually in the airport with a fake, Dublin airport, this is Wi-Fi hotspot, and then they've given access to their device. So we want to try and prevent, again, that kind of negligence from occurring within your users' user base.
And I suppose just from to add from a licensing point of view, and again to reiterate the simplicity thing, you have device license, which will give you one device, obviously. But more importantly, I suppose, from the mobile perspective, you have a user license, which enables you to license up to 5 devices. So, for example, if I had a laptop and I had my phone and my tablet, I could, very quickly protect those 3 products with one user license. And then there's a server license as well for servers. This is me. Yeah. So device management for all endpoints. So I mentioned it at the start. You're looking at mobile devices, iOS and Android. You're looking at Mac OS. You're looking at Windows and so Windows laptops, but Windows servers as well. So again, 6, I suppose, key features. Device health monitoring. So it takes a scan of the endpoint that you're protecting. It looks at the OS. It looks at it looks at the essentially the security aspects of the OS. It can tell if the products are rooted or jailbroken, or if they're at risk of compromise based on, again, that intelligence from Symantec in terms of what they know to be vulnerabilities and threats, etc. From an asset management point of view, you can have a very quick, high-level view of your assets, be they mobile or endpoint. The product will also take scraping of the applications that are installed on those devices, and it will give you a version of the applications, so you can very quickly, say, okay, I have application XYZ, and it's running perhaps an older version, and from there you can look to update it. So, not exactly perhaps from a security standpoint, but an asset management standpoint. There's a lot of controls from a policy management point of view, so you can configure very secure passwords. So although, as Sinead was saying, the policies are very much wizard driven, they're simple to implement, there is a level of granularity where you can apply very secure password policies, for example, based on it's like alphanumeric or
the length of it, when it's going to expire, things like that.
Exactly, yeah.
And the idea is just to, across different devices, they have different requirements for passwords and things. So we want to just make sure that your customers are centralized, that it's all.
So from the Wi-Fi and email perspective, this product will also allow you to not only enroll your business or corporate devices, it will also allow you to enroll your personal devices. So this kind of brings up the whole BYOD problem of you have a person bringing their personal device to work. I don't want the business to put a business app for security on my mobile. So it tries to find the balance in terms of, if I bring my personal device and I install it to work and I install SEP Cloud on my personal device, it will afford me all the security of SEP Cloud, but it won't have control over my device, such as being able to, wipe it or have different controls that are specific to, say, a corporate device. So you can, when you're enrolling a device, you can choose to enroll it as a personal device or a corporate device. So there's quite a lot of leeway there for customers who want to do that. Encryption management, we have a slide on that, and deployment flexibility, but just again from the encryption management perspective, SEP Cloud, there's an encryption add-on which will essentially allow you to centralize management of encryption. So not semantic encryption, but native encryption. So BitLocker, for example, or the iOS one is File Vault, is it?
Yeah.
And there's also native Android encryption. That can all be centrally managed from the SEP Cloud portal as well. So that's as a by-the-by. It's a nice feature to have, I suppose, if you are just using native encryption and you want to centralize the management of that along with your endpoint protection.
And it's the only add-on within the package as such, so
Yeah.
everything else that you're seeing so far, that when you buy your SEP Cloud, you get everything with that. The only extra add-on is that you pay extra for the encryption management.
Yeah. So again, in terms of deployment, it's that ease of use again. You can have users enroll their device, as I say, like as a corporate device or as a personal device as needs be. But for the larger customers numbers, you can obviously push out packages to install it and automate the deployment of agents to endpoints. From a security perspective, again, with devices that may be lost or stolen, you can push out lock or wipe commands. And again, with the whole BYOD, corporate and personal device, the lock and wipe commands wouldn't be applicable to a personal device. So again, giving the user of a personal device confidence that, okay, I'm secure from threats, but the company doesn't control my device, whereas those kind of commands can be and will be pushed out to corporate devices in the event of them being lost or stolen, for example. That's a very broad overview of SEP Cloud in terms of the individual features. I suppose they're the key ones, really.
Absolutely.
But again, if you have any questions about individual requirements that you guys might have, we can answer those after. So this is just a quick view of the user enrollment portal. So you'll have the option from the top right, you'll have the option to either enroll it as a personal device or a corporate device. In terms of, you can simply, you're emailed the link, right?
Yep.
So from the corporation, you can be emailed the link, which will enable you to have download the package to the endpoint.
Yep.
If it's a mobile device, it'll be redirected to the official app download site. So extremely secure in terms of accessing the relevant secure app stores, be it Google Store or the Apple Store.
So obviously from an endpoint side of things, it's a policy-driven solution. So whatever you tell to do in the policy is what's going to occur on the end user side. From a mobile perspective, which I find is actually quite useful for IT guys, is that while they've got all the visibility, so the big thing, visibility, being able to see if the phone is jailbroken, being able to see what OS, if there needs to be updates, what apps are on the devices. Whilst you can't, say, remove an app that's installed on a mobile phone, having that visibility is what's key, right, from an IT perspective, and knowing what's there and what's not. What you also have, though, is the end user will get a notification, for example, if they're not able to connect to Wi-Fi network because this Wi-Fi network is suspicious, or if there's an error or whatever's going on from a mobile perspective, the end user will be able to see it, be given instructions as to maybe how to address it. So it's not all going back to the IT guy where he's getting inundated again with all these messages from end users, and that they can actually resolve the issue quite simply themselves. So that's end user guidance is quite good as well.
I mean, that's just a quick snapshot of the admin console at the enroll screen. So you're not getting too much information thrown at you, but you have the basics, and it's telling you what the operating system is. It's telling you whether it was enrolled as a personal device or a company device. So you have all that information in hand. In terms, so this is going into the agent deployment options. So depending again on the device type, Sinead said, you can look at your standard AD. You can use Azure AD Sync. You can give the end user the opportunity to enroll their device. So obviously, if the device isn't enrolled, it's not secure, but at least it's not necessarily on the network. So you can ensure that there isn't access to specific apps. And again, you have the redistributable package if that's the control you want to push out the agent yourself. So the self-enrollment, really, I suppose, the benefit is it's primarily focused on mobile devices because the person can do it at their own. They can essentially do it themselves because they have the device, they have the logins to their Apple Store or Google Play Store, so it gives them that flexibility.
You'll be aware fairly quickly of the status, so if the end user has actually signed up to it or not, you'll be able to see that within the console.
And briefly, again, I mentioned this actually already in the last slide, but this is essentially just the opportunity to centralize the management of native encryption that you might have on devices already. So if it's BitLocker or if it's File Vault, the keys can be managed from the SEP Cloud portal. So that's just, it's as I said, another simplification of managing the security of those devices, both from the endpoint perspective and from the encryption point of view. So partner management tools, this
yeah. So Shahab mentioned this earlier on. If we go on to the next slide. So the partner management console. I kind of like to emphasize on this because I don't feel like that partners like yourselves utilize it enough, and I think you could really benefit from it, and your customers can really benefit from it. So the idea there is if it's yourselves, if you're that kind of hybrid where you're, like I said, you're selling the licenses, but maybe you're also doing a little bit of management, you're looking after. We often meet partners that maybe don't even realize they're a managed kind of service, or they're looking at that, or they do a little bit here and there, and they don't realize kind of all of the, I suppose, how they can expand on that side of the business with a solution like this. So the idea is single pane of glass across all customers. So the partner management console, you'd set this up, you and your admin guys would have access to it. What it has is, so it actually covers two products. It covers our small business edition, which is another solution, and our SEP Cloud. And the idea is it has one main location to receive alerts and reports. And the idea is each customer has their own SEP Cloud account. But depending on the different types of customers, they might want to manage it themselves, they might want to co-manage it, or give full access and management over to the managed service provider. So the idea there is when you actually come in, there'll be a token within your SEP Cloud management account, and you enter that token into your partner management console. And that now links the two accounts, and it means that when you, as a managed service provider, or if you have multiple customers, you're coming in, and you have visibility over all of your clients in one location that have your SEP Cloud. It also means that you can kind of hover over, see where they are in terms of licensing, if they're coming close to expiration. So even from a management side of that kind of element, that could be something you use it for. You mightn't actually want to do full management later, but just keep it on top of your customer base. You can then also jump into the account from there. So actually jump into the SEP Cloud management console from this one location. So it really gives a lot of visibility, a way for you and your teams, if you so wish, to be able to look after those customers. Time and cost saving, so it's reducing, again, all of those additional logins that you have to look after and manage. One main location that you're seeing all of your customers, you're being able to receive all of your alerts and notifications from one centralized location, and you'll also see straight away when you come in on a per customer basis, if a machine's infected, if there's an alert, notification around something that you need to be made aware of, you can see it there. And then visibility, so we kind of mentioned this earlier on, but it's all about visibility really. That's kind of where it starts from an IT perspective, because it's one thing to have all this protection in place, but if you don't actually, you can't see anything from a top level, then it's so messy, right? And you have to spend time in loads of different places. So we want to consolidate everything for you, and I really believe that the Partner Management Console does this for you, and also it's free, which is nice as well. So you're not paying anything extra for this visibility. And our guys at Partner Services, Shahab mentioned it earlier on, those guys are great, right? And you can reach out to them for anything really partner related. If they can't facilitate you, obviously they listed a whole host of things, then they'll know who to reach out to, be it customer care or whoever it is, and get you in contact with the right people. But they actually set up then any kind of demonstrations and things like that of the Partner Management Console. And like you said, they work with the ITO team where we can set up a combination demonstration. So it might not be for yourselves, maybe you have a customer in mind, things like that, which is great.
So Sinead mentioned the SEP SB as well, which is the Small Business Edition. So that's an on-prem version essentially of SEP Cloud. So if you do have customers that have SEP SB, the on-prem version, they can very easily upgrade to SEP Cloud. There is a migration path, there's an upgrade path, and obviously SEP SB had the Partner Management Console, and that can very easily be transitioned over to the SEP Cloud Partner Management Console. So it's very easy to kind of bring together all those customers into that one console.
And that's just a quick kind of overview of what it looks like. So when you log in, you've got your partner name, how many you've got total installed, so product usage summary, you've got kind of quick tasks, so adding a customer, activating product or trial, things like that. So they'll vary depending on, if you're working with a small business edition or the SEP Cloud. Endpoint protection overview down here, so if there's any attention needed in specific areas, you can see that and drill down further into that information as well. So a nice kind of breakdown there. Also, it's white labeled as well, which is nice. And obviously the day-to-day kind of customer care, so you're kind of getting a lot there. And I think we're almost the end of our SEP Cloud to move over to our email, which is good timing because we're running tight. But big emphasis here, we have to throw it in. Gartner Magic Quadrant leader, Symantec's right up there. And it has been for, I think, the last, correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, 16, 17 years. Yep. And the reason why we emphasize on this, and you'll see as well for email, even we're Forrester leader there, even from an email side of things as well, we've got this across multiple product areas, but especially in endpoint protection. And it kind of ties in with everything we've been talking about there today already, and especially when we mentioned about the global intelligence network and that, because when you're talking to your customers, a lot of them, they're hearing from maybe multiple vendors, they're hearing about the same feature sets, right? Oh yeah, well I know that X, Y, and Z, they do that as well. They have those same features. You're like, what, what's different here? And I don't think people kind of focus on this enough. The fact that we're the leader, right? A lot of times we're actually the people who have things first, right? So people are looking to us for guidance as to where's the industry going and what we need to do next from a cybersecurity standpoint. But the Global Intelligence Network, as they mentioned there earlier, it's the largest civilian intelligence network that's out there. The fact that we've got so many endpoints feeding it from a variety of different product areas means that the type of information we're seeing, it's not all just about files and attachments and things like that. It's websites, it's so being able to identify what type of information is where and things like that. So all of this feed into this this area, and because we cover so many products, because we've got so much intelligence there, that's what's in the background, and that's what's one of the most important things, is the information they're seeing. Because while customers might be seeing another vendor have, they've got, say, the ability to password management, or they've got the ability to lock and wipe a device, do they have the same visibility in terms of what's coming next? What type of threat is coming tomorrow? And that's what our intelligence gives us, and that's how we were able to prevent, our users from being hit by things like, WannaCry and Petya. So that's what's a big focus area that you should definitely give your attention to as well.
Just one thing before we transition there. Apart from the technology piece, which we hope you understand is kind of a strong technological answer to the very complex threat landscape, I'm just going to assume that today, because you're in this event organized by CMS and ourselves with a pure, kind of small business focus, this is a piece that you're willing to grow, right? Apart from the technology piece, just also want to kind of add up on three areas. So you really have the right support in terms of technology understanding. Kieran was very modest when it came to his qualifications. Being a knight in Symantec is a pretty big deal. Not everyone can become a knight, go through a very thorough, tough selection process, and it means that Kieran has demonstrated a deep down capabilities and understanding around a key area of technologies within our portfolio. So you are talking to the right expert here, and Kieran has the support of the entire ITO team. So that's the one piece. The second piece, and as Sinead mentioned, it's a very populated space and we have a lot of products, and sometimes we're aware that it can be hard to kind of navigate to understand, how am I going to sell it? How can I address this? From a licensing point of view and kind of go-to-market strategy, later in the year, and I can't exactly give you like a precise date, but that's something of a high priority because we got so much partner feedback on this. We're going to be publishing some SKUs that are going to make it easier for you to sell all of these technologies to the small business space. So SEP Cloud and Email Security Service are going to be bundled into a very specific SKU. And because we know we can't ignore the web piece, when email and web combined represent 90% of the origin of attacks, we're also going to integrate within the small business play the web filtering and web analysis, let's say, web content filtering piece into that as well to make it easier for you. And the third piece is health check. That's one area where Sinead will kind of emphasize as well. Even though these are security as a service and in real time you do benefit from the advanced analysis and understanding of the threat landscape Symantec does have as a pure cybersecurity play leader, it's good to kind of remember that security is not set and forget, even for a cloud service. So we do offer a health check service. And beyond checking the security posture of the clients and bringing that kind of added value, it's putting you in a fantastic situation. Just go and engage. You're not trying to sell something, you're just ensuring that whichever investment, however small it may seem, because it's small business, but actually very big in the eyes of your customer, is valuable to you. And from there, you'll help them ensure that they keep being protected the best way they can, and then you can open up the conversation. And from a sales play perspective, you can benefit from the full support of our sales and CMS in helping you unveil the opportunities. If you're just putting your foot out there the door in the small business field, there's so much you can grow from just one product if you're leveraging the health check discussion to then open up into as many areas as possible, given the fact that the threat landscape is fundamentally endless and our portfolio is quite wide. It's just to add it there, but yeah. So thank you guys for this, and now I'll just go and close my mouth.
Does anybody want to take 5 minutes?
Yeah. Do you want a quick water break? Email. So why are we selling email security in the first place? Email is the number one delivery mechanism for infections, right? And obviously from a data loss perspective. And why do we think that is? Because it's easy, right? Why not go straight for email, right? I can just send something through, and if it lands in, if they don't have their endpoint protection in place, if they don't have an email security, it's obviously going to go straight to the endpoint. So it's kind of a gamble for them, but it might work out 50% of the time. So we've got a couple of areas there. So from social engineering, so a lot of people think, they're just sending out emails. And a lot of times, especially if they're targeted attacks, if they are targeting a specific company, they put a lot of time into this. They actually spend time, money, their own kind of resources to actually try and get through to this company, this network. So you've got the target attacks using spear phishing campaigns, so they've got specific information in the emails, they're actually trying to communicate with the end user, or even just, and a lot of times it's actually maybe even building up a rapport if they've gotten through that initial phase, and then bringing it through. You've got that 12 billion there in the business email compromise scams. That's just a number that we know about. So obviously they brought in the GDPR there May last year. So companies have to acknowledge it and bring it to them, to their customers and tell everybody that they've been compromised or there's been a breach of some sort. Before that, that wasn't the case. So, the 12 billion, that number's obviously going up all the time probably with, again, we're getting all of these numbers from our threat research report. But beforehand, there's probably a lot of cases that weren't being acknowledged. And you've got data breaches, so that's from stolen or lost credentials. So that could be malicious insiders, but a lot of times it's probably more so a case of those accidental. I accidentally sent a list of all of our accounts and numbers to somebody that's outside the company or that I shouldn't have. And then you've got your advanced threats, increase in ransomware variants. We mentioned this earlier on from an endpoint protection standpoint. That's never really going to go away because again, it's an easy way for malware creators to make money. And years ago, it was a case of creating new infections. It would have taken them a lot longer to create them. They would have sent them out. It was really just to create havoc and have a kind of mess around. Right now, they can actually make money from it. This is their business. So, with polymorphic malware and things like that now, you only have to change one small part of a file to actually have, hundreds of thousands of new files, new malicious variants. Then you've got your 72% incident responder. So, using security analytics, that's a way for us to increase the time, or so I should say decrease the time it's going to take us to identify and respond to a new threat. So we'll kind of mention that as well when we go talk a little bit later. There's endpoint detection response that you can get with add on to our SEP 14, which is our on-premise solution, but also even within email, we've got our email threat detection response. You're going to hear me mention that later. For some of you who've had email for a while, it used to be called email ATP, but now it's changed to ETD or email threat detection response. Right? And then you've got your data protection, so targeted threats, identifying and stealing sensitive information. Right, 90% up. These numbers, obviously, you can see they're increasing here, all around stolen credentials, lost information. Why? Because information is key here, right? Because that's how they get more money, by having more credentials, more access, more visibility, right? We're talking about our IT guys wanting more visibility, bad guys want more visibility as well. So how are we going to protect our users and protect our customers from these types of threats? When you've got an email coming through, so some sort of phishing attack, so as I said, it could be something that's been built up over time, whereby they now, the actual receiver thinks they're talking to person A, but they're really talking to person B. It could be a random one-time email, right? The idea is a lot of times, because they're social engineered attacks, they might be looking at when certain members of a company are away, they're on holidays, they'll be looking at, that's why from a social media perspective, having things locked down, not having things open, these all play a part in the whole kind of cybersecurity from a cybersecurity standpoint. So how we're going to protect your user. So when a user receives a link in an email, and we have it obviously in-house, every time we see an email come through, it's actually, it's basically been rewritten. I'm jumping ahead of myself here. We've got our evaluation at delivery time. So the initial, when a link comes through, it's been looked at that top level, right? Before it actually gets into your inbox, it's en route, and it hasn't actually hit your mailbox yet. And at that time, we're looking at a link. We're going to check it over multiple hops, and we highlight that there because a lot of our competitors aren't doing that. They might check it over 2, 3 hops, whereas we're going to follow it right through to make sure that that link is what it says it is, and that it's a secure site. And that's how we're detecting new and emerging links then as well, that could be malicious. So anything really that's getting into your inbox, that's what we want to make sure 100% that it's secure. Now, what's going to happen is the link comes into the inbox, say on a Friday. It's done all the checks at the top level, and now it's in your inbox. You're not back in until Monday morning. What happens is now that malware creator comes and spends time over the weekend changing that link. So whilst at the time it was checked, everything was perfect, multiple hops, yeah, it's all secure, and we let that through. Now it's sitting in the inbox, it's at rest. What are we doing? Right? So what happens is that's kind of, so from a safeguard perspective, you'll hear us talking about there's 3 main packages. We've got our safeguard, which is the basic email protection package. Then we've got our email threat detection response, and the reason why we kind of add this on, it's for those kind of maybe those targeted attacks, right, where customers are actually fielding off consistent email attacks based on their company or whatever the case is. And then we've got email threat isolation. So we're going to touch off all of those. But the next item we have here, educated users. Don't click on the links. So that's where the email threat detection response add-on package comes into play. Where you've got your phishing readiness as such, right? So within that ETDR package, you're going to get an add-on, which is the ability for you to actually have your own login console, send out phishing emails to your customers, test them, to be able to create separate reports and things like that, to be able to track then if those users are following, if they're actually improving on those tests, and then customize and create your own phishing content there. And then you've got your evaluating links at click time. So click time protection, again, is in that ETDR package. And what that does is it emphasizes on what you've already got in the basic package. And as I said, it's specifically maybe more towards those customers that really feel like they've been targeted, they've had a number of attacks recently. And what it does is it actually means that every single time that link is clicked, regardless of it being sitting in your inbox, it's going to be checked every single time while it's there. So even if it's a couple of weeks later and the user goes back and clicks it, so you'll see it re-rate and it comes up as click time protection when you actually go to click on the link, because we're checking it each time. I should emphasize obviously on the basic package there, so you're getting your protection in terms of link protection at delivery time. You're also getting within that basic package, you get policy-based encryption, which is great. It means, I'm actually wondering, we probably have that in a couple of slides there, so I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit. So I mentioned email threat isolation. So this is kind of third in line to the packaging perspective, but we're finding a lot of traction with this because nobody else is doing it. This came about a couple of years ago, I think in the last 18 months even. Gartner mentioned that isolation was an area that people need to look at. It wasn't something that was being done, and this was an area that they felt 2022, that's where things are going to be. Isolation is going to have to play a key part in cybersecurity. So Symantec acquired a company called Fireglass, and we brought all of their technology in-house and how we could utilize it within existing products, and obviously a standalone. So this solution, while it integrates with our email, you can also buy it as a standalone. So if you had customers that didn't want to go down maybe our email security route, but they still really liked the look of this, they could still purchase this separately. And you can also have web isolation with our web security service, our proxy solution, and a standalone then as well. So what is isolation? I'm talking a lot about isolation. What exactly is it? So the idea here is that untrusted links. So you've got kind of I mentioned earlier on, a rating system there, 1 to 10. So you might have 1 to 4 is you're good, 5 to 8 you're unknown, again that grey scale, and you're 9, 10 definitely bad. So the idea here is that anything that falls into that grey scale. So maybe it's, I mentioned, how we use reputation analysis for websites. So maybe it's a website that was created a year ago, right? This is what people do. They actually think ahead, malware creators. They might create a website a year ago and they'll keep it live. It might be a fake banking site. They'll keep it live for a year. They'll be throwing a bit of traffic to it. It's live, nothing kind of suspicious going on there. And so it builds up a reputation. The idea is to try and trick our technology, our machine learning information to see, well, everything looks good here. So this reputation, yeah, we should give it a high reputation. Nothing has gone wrong here. Because, big indicators of things that jump out to us would be, those drive-by 24-hour pop-up sites and things like that. Okay, they stand out a lot more. So in that scenario, this is going to maybe fall into that 5 to 8. There's nothing bad that's happened, and it appears good, but it's still kind of on that suspicious scale based on, again, different criteria. that's where isolation comes into play. So if a user receives a link like that and we look at it and we'll say, right, no, I can't be sure. We can't be sure that this is a good site. That's when isolation occurs. So when the user clicks on it, the browser opens up to the end user. They appear, everything appears as though they're on the website. They could click on multiple tabs. They could be redirected to different sites. Every time that happens, they're actually in an isolated container. So nothing could be dropped to the endpoint, nothing actually, it's a completely, as I said, isolated container, reducing the chance of a user becoming infected by something from the site. As I said, any redirects from that then maintain the isolation. And it also, which is huge, it's in read-only mode. So it means that if that site is trying to get the user to enter their credentials, their username, their password, it will come up with a message telling the user, actually, we believe this site to be malicious, so we're not allowing you to enter these details right now. So again, the end user doesn't receive any kind of latency, there's no kind of downtime, they still get to experience that site. So maybe it might even fall under a case, maybe it's a legitimate site that has been recently compromised and the site's not aware of it. So all of these things come into play. So this is, as you can see here, as I mentioned, being read-only protection. So it prompts the user for credentials and they're prevented from entering those details. Another thing we mentioned earlier on there was business email compromise. So this is a big area. It's a case of there's no attachment, there's no kind of file being dropped. This is them simply asking you to give me money and the customer complying. Right? So how do you actually prevent or protect your customers from this type of attack? And again, this is definitely one of those ones that where they may have built up a rapport, maybe spoofing is in place here where they think it's coming from somebody internally, but it's not. So we've got obviously elements in place there from a spoofing perspective. That's where we've got the SPF, DKIM, DMARC. These are ways for us to authenticate users' email addresses so the end user doesn't have to always be on the lookout. We obviously recommend that they should be as much as they can be on their toes. That's what the phishing readiness is for, to keep them aware. But we need to help them out a little bit as well, right? And this is where this business email compromise comes in. So any type of impersonation. So the idea is we have a scam analyzer that's looking at text, that's looking at wording, how sentences are structured, and the way, I suppose, that all comes together along with the authentication of specific users and senders. Especially, we've got like a list, an option where you can actually enter in specific senders. So if it's like a CEO or CFO, people that are prominent in the company that maybe their names are online a lot of the time. I suppose what we realize from maybe people don't like a lot of confrontation, right? So say the CEO messages this chief financial officer or the manager of the finance team, and they say, hey, you know, I'm on holidays, this is urgent, important, like all these notifications, right, in the subject bar. We've got things to identify if there's specific words in subject titles, things like that. And the idea is we can actually put in messaging within that title, say, potential CEO fraud, potential email compromise here. So we want to try and help the end users as much as we can, because people get flustered. They think, oh, you know, I just got this email, they need me to do this right now, I'm just going to do that really quickly. Without questioning, maybe especially if it's somebody higher up. That just seems to be a tendency there. So multi-layered protection, we're back here again. So you'll see this coming full circle. It's never ending really. We always want to be with the multi-layered protection. So we do have actually another solution that kind of adds on email fraud protection, which we're not going to kind of focus on today, but again, it's more focused on basically authentication, confirming who users are to prevent any type of fraudulent mails coming through. The sender authentication, I mentioned this, validating, SPF, DKIM, DMARC. These are options, again, you can enable within your spam and malware identification section within the console. You've got your email scam analyzer, so detects lookalike attacks, blocks spoofed and phishing domains. So again, if the end user, so it could be Symantec, right? But when they, or Symantec, right? And it looks like it's the same quick of the look with the human eye, they don't notice these things. We also have ways as well, which I find very useful for ourselves internally. Anytime somebody that's from outside the company messages us, we have a thing that says EXT, right? So it indicates straight away I'm talking to somebody that's not a Symantec customer or employee. So it means then you can think a little bit faster to say, right, what information do I give to this person? And then obviously impersonation control, so stopping user impersonation, so that's domain spoofing, trusted senders, so you can actually whitelist a list of trusted senders. We obviously know as well that there's going to be companies that maybe send emails and things like that out on your behalf, so that's a way for you to we've got links in there like for Salesforce and things like that, so you can do that within the console. Then obviously we've got reporting, logs, and then an API data feed option there as well, depending on type of customer that you're dealing with. Anything you want to add in?
Not yet.
So stopping ransomware and those other emerging threats. So emails with malicious attachments or links, so that's going to be key there. That's going to be something that's big that comes through. Behavioral analysis. So we want to look at not only if there is, again, the MD5 of a file, that's almost, that hash of the file, that's something we're going to look at straight away. That's with definitions and things like that. We're looking at MD5 is one of the number one things. But what we need now is we need to add in the behavioral analysis. So the size of the file, its locations, other files it interacts with. All of this information comes together to give us a bigger picture of what a file is trying to do or before it actually occurs. So this is again where it comes back to that unknown stage where we don't know what a file is, and this is why behavioral analysis is really important here. Sandboxing. So sandboxing you're going to get with your ETDR package. And the idea there, advanced machine learning behavioral network analysis, so that we can actually, so the idea actually of the sandboxing, which is quite cool, you can set a 20-minute max on it, so it goes from 0 to 20 minutes. So the idea there being that obviously we're going to maybe sandbox an email, have a look at it, see what's trying to run or what's happening here with if there's an attachment or something within it. The 20-minute mark there is, say for example, now I went through this yesterday, I think it's like a minute or something, maybe less, where the maximum amount of time that usually takes for a file to be identified within the sandbox side of things. But we give a 20-minute mark where sometimes we might say, well, you know what, from a security standpoint, hold that for a maximum of 20 minutes if the sandbox, if it needs it. Okay, so to be sure, right, it's never going to take 20 minutes, but in the case that something is going on in the back end, something's happening, we don't want to release that file regardless. Like, yeah, the end user might be slightly impacted for a moment, but we want to be sure before it goes out. So that's the idea behind the 20 minutes. If you want, obviously, some people go with 0. No, I never want the end user to have to wait for anything. So it depends on your own priorities and the customers. Link protection. So at email delivery, I mentioned that with the basic safeguard package, you're going to get that. You've got your click time protection with the additional to ETDR, advanced phishing variant detection then as well. And then your email threat isolation, so malicious URL isolation. So anything that comes through your mail, a link, again, that is unknown to us or we don't know what that site's going to do, that's where the isolation can jump in. And the malicious email be blocked.
So, excuse me, as Sinead was saying, a lot of the time the threat will come through not necessarily email, but the link. And the link is going to that malicious website where you're either downloading a file or it's, there's some kind of drive-by download going on. So instead of blocking all those websites, you're essentially giving access to the website, to the end user, but it's via, you're giving them access to the website via Symantec's technology. So Symantec are stripping out all the source code in the back end, they're stripping out all the scripting, and they're giving you just basically a view that you'd expect, but it's completely secure because you're viewing it from their portal. It's like RDPing onto another PC. You're viewing it completely separate to your own device, so you're not pulling anything down. And from an end user perspective, you're taking the frustration out of them just seeing a link, sorry, this page is blocked, to them actually being able to view the website, but their security vendor that they have installed saying, you've accessed this website, but please beware, it's coming from Symantec because it's been recognized as a malicious site. So they didn't have the full knowledge that, okay, I really shouldn't be on here. And from a policy perspective, even though this is email threat isolation, you're essentially talking about links going to websites. So from managing your policies in terms of how many websites you block or how many websites you don't block, each policy, you know, growing on a daily basis based on what you can and can't access. As Sinead said, that grey area where you're not sure if I should block it or not, it does away with that. You can essentially allow everything because it's coming through Symantec, where Symantec deem it to be above a certain risk. So for me, that's kind of a key differentiator for some of the other solutions that are out there. And in terms of enabling the email threat isolation product onto the base package, it's simply just checking a box.
Yeah.
So it's extremely easy to deploy onto the base package. Obviously, from the point of view of incorporating it into a third-party email solution, there is a little bit of configuration, but you know, it's a very powerful solution. Very few vendors have it. Sorry, any vendor that has it, it's specifically isolation. Symantec, as far as I'm aware, Symantec are the only vendor that actually have it integrated with their products. So it's very much a differentiator for email security, which is the number one factor.
Data protection, because we can't forget about data protection. We mentioned it a little bit earlier on about lost or stolen information. So obviously a lot of it comes down to credentials, but sometimes it's, as I said, a malicious insider, or sometimes it's purely accidental. I think a lot of the time it is that accidental side of things, but we should be aware of it. So it gives, again, that visibility, that control, and overall that protection to your environment, to your data, and the information that's going to be sent through your email. So the data protection comes with the basic package, the safeguard. And the idea here is that you're going to be able to create policies, a data protection policy, so it could be around HIPAA, it could be around PII, specific to like dates of birth or account numbers, things like that. And you'll specify what happens, so that they're blocked from sending that type of content, that they receive a notification, that the admin obviously is made aware that somebody has sent this, and you know, maybe they need to be spoken to, or as I said, it could have been an accident, but if this is like a recurring theme, obviously we have data loss prevention solutions, and I believe we have some form of integration there as well. I don't cover the data loss prevention side of it, unfortunately, but we could definitely open up that conversation if something that you're interested in as well. And the idea here is just to prevent from an email side of things, but the data loss prevention obviously covers USB sticks and other data loss prevention options. So the idea there, block, alert, or encrypt emails and attachments. So that's where we've got policy-based encryption. So again, comes with our basic safeguard package, and the policy-based encryption, I might cover it off here just within our kind of grand circle of security here. The policy-based encryption allows you to actually create, again, policies to specify, well, if there's certain information being sent, that it should be encrypted. And so the idea is that the end user might receive, so if it's a specific attachment, things like that, they'll receive a PDF that they log in, they open, and they'll enter a password to receive that information. We do have an add-on package as well called Policy-Based Encryption Advanced that your customers can pay a little bit extra for if they want additional features. So that would be around if they want kind of white labeling, so if they want a portal that, for example, if they send an email and a customer user receives it, they'll go to a link, it'll open up a whole portal with their logo, their details, and they'll log in there to receive said document. So that's one of the main differentiators, the white labeling, the portal, and I believe there's some additional kind of specific things around certificates, and that can be necessary for certain companies depending on their size and what policies they have in place.
We've come up with a lot of end user customers asking us about, through their partners, asking us about encryption. So with a lot of financial end user customers, they're looking for a surety that any emails that they send, regardless of whether or not the recipient has encryption or not, the email will be fully encrypted from sender to recipient. So if the recipient, for example, doesn't have any kind of TLS or any kind of encryption turned on, they can have that advanced encryption. They can send the email. The recipient will get an email from Symantec or white label, I believe, with a link. The link will send them to a web portal where they can log in, view that email, which is it's in Symantic's cloud, so it's fully encrypted, and they can reply to the email from there. And the communication can go back and forth between Symantic's user portal, which that user will have access to. So very powerful, and it's something that a lot of Irish customers are looking for in certain categories.
We're going back to the circle of security here. So prevent, isolate, respond, prepare, integrate. So this comes in one big circle. What you'll find is without one, there's a hole in your security at some level. You'll also see this across multiple products if you're ever sitting in on additional Symantec presentations, which I'm sure you will, for different product features. This features a lot, again, because it brings back to that multi-layer protection even within each of the products. So from a prevention standpoint, you've got we want to prevent those advanced attacks, any kind of data loss that we can from an email perspective, brand damage, because that's what's going to happen if you're breached in some way, if there is some sort of business email compromise, and the brand damage is almost worse than any kind of financial loss there, because it means continued financial loss, right? Because users maybe now don't trust your brand and that security is important to you. So from an isolation standpoint, malicious websites, phishing attacks, critical data from unintended users, okay? We've got then the response side of things, so threat and data analytics, that's where all our machine learning technologies coming into play, and then the rapid remediation. So we want to be able to respond to any kind of ongoing immediate threats that might be coming in, and have users, the admin, made aware of what's going on and what's coming in to their environment. So, for example, within your dashboard in your email console, you'll get a good breakdown of like the percentages and the amount of spam, amount of malware that you're receiving into your inboxes. And that's where we kind of mentioned the health checks a couple of times. You can do a health check on your email where we can look and see, right, well, there looks to be a spike here. Like, was there some sort of targeted attack at this scenario? What was happening here? And that's where we make recommendations. Well, you don't have X, Y, and Z turned on. Maybe we should look to turn those options on. Why? Talk about it. Open up the conversation. Why do you have them turned off, and see how we can resolve that for the customer. So that's why health checks are so important. And example A is, a customer might have email safeguard. Having a health check and opening up that conversation brings in the opportunity for your email threat detection response add-on, or just the isolation option there as well. So it all benefits the customer and yourselves then as well. And then you've got so preparation. That's really key, right? What's my dad always say? It's too late to sharpen the sword when the drum beats for battle here, right? So when you've got your phishing readiness in play, that's where you come in with your awareness for users, so they're kept aware at all times. What they're clicking on, what they're opening, because realistically, like, we can put a lot of this in place to protect the end users from themselves in some cases, but it only takes one user to click on the link or to open something that they shouldn't. And while we've got all of these things in place, nothing is 100% effective, right? We're going to try our best. That's why we've got all of these great key features and all of this technology and intelligence in the back end. But that's why, again, we've got our endpoint protection to follow on that protection standpoint. So if something does get through from an email to the endpoint layer, you've got that add-on to block it at another level. And data classification. So then from an integration standpoint, shared and correlated threat intelligence. So we mentioned this, all of our products feed into the global intelligence network, and thus then our customers feed from it. So we had 163 million email customers, right? That's a lot, and it means that they think of the visibility in terms of the types of things that people are being sent. I'm talking about, types of files, new variants, new piece of malware, things like that. So we're constantly seeing that, and then thus our customers then, that's how that all works, right? That real-time intelligence comes into play. cross-platform technology, automated protection response. So by setting up your policies and things like that within the console, you're not just kind of waiting for things to be alerted to something happening. It's actually addressing it for you and then notifying you of what's happened thereafter. So Kieran kind of touched off something similar here earlier on, where you saw the 4 main pillars here, our platforms. Endpoint, network, email, and then cloud security. So these are always going to be talked about from a semantics perspective, especially in your area, your industry, right? As in small, medium business, because this is where customers need it. They need the endpoint protection. Like I said, at a minimum, that should be, a starting point. Then you've got your email security, which is really adding on that extra layer of protection. Everybody's got email, so it makes sense. And then you've got the additional add-ons, so for maybe productivity, but also that it's always going to be focused on security, but from a network security perspective, that web security service solution, that's a cloud-based web proxy. And the idea there is, especially for customers going towards the cloud, they want to increase their productivity with their workforce. They also want to have visibility over end users, specific end user reporting, right? What are those users doing? Where are they spending their time? What websites are they on? We can even go down to, if they know what they're paying, for example, for their bandwidth, we can go down to cost of how much each of their sites are costing them, if certain users are costing them more than others. So it goes quite granular. And then you've got your cloud security with the cloud access security broker as well. So email requirements, we kind of say requirements because these are like recommendations really that we should say, right? They should have obviously best in class spam, malware defense, which is number 1 when you come into our console, you see from the services. Integrated content isolation, fraud protection, so these are add-on options, but again, you can get them within the console. Intercompany outbound, inbound, so we want to make sure that whether they're coming into you or going out, right, that you're not giving any kind of lateral movement in terms of infections and that as well. And then flexible form factor, so cloud, on-premise, API connectors. We're really giving, so depending on whatever type of customer you have, we're giving that access and that visibility to any of those areas of security, right? So we don't want to hone in on one, we want to make sure that everybody gets what they want from the solution. And then obviously the machine learning is going to be a big focus area. So we mentioned this earlier on, Forrester Wave, where email Symantec comes into top there. That only happened a couple of months ago, and we were really happy to see that. It means that we're it was a good recognition really to show that we put a lot of time, a lot of effort into our email security solutions and enhancing the types of packages that we provide, again depending on the customer needs. So that was really emphasised in that report there as well.
So if you do have customers that have different email security solutions, Symantec do have a really interesting POC, proof of concept available, whereby they can literally compare, I suppose, the incumbent solution, the other solution with a Symantec solution, by running literally journaling emails from the exchange, continuing to send them through their incumbent solution, but also sending it through Symantec in a separate stream. And what Symantec will do then is obviously it will give you a report, and it will give you the other product will also give you a report, and it will give you the opportunity to compare like with like. So in the event of you having a customer with a different solution, a different vendor, and maybe they're having issues with a certain area, maybe it's spam, maybe it's just policies aren't working right, but primarily around the security. So spam emails getting through that shouldn't be getting through. There's a really powerful proof of concept opportunity there if it's something that you want to look at. So that's something we can talk about again.
I think we're at the end. There was a couple of appendices. Do you want to go through those? I don't think we need to.
No.
We are finished.
Yeah.
So sorry we took a little bit extra time. So the girls are going to jump up now. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Hope you learned.